that, we're off in the second half. Jet City still with a 106-96 lead because they didn't score any points during halftime. Guerrero out of the back quickly, and she is your lead jammer. Betty Aim Fire struggling at the back of the Jet City pack. The Jets re-looping to the front as Emerald City again running into some penalty trouble. Having a skater sent off who had to cycle back as there was nowhere for her to sit. Guerrero coming through on her first scoring pass. But she picks up a cutting of the track, and we will have a power jam for Emerald City. Betty Aim Fire, however, still, I believe, fighting her way through on her first pass. Not yet picking up any points. As the Jet City defense, judo chop at the front, holding her back, finally runs out of room. Betty Aim Fire is through, but is not your lead jammer, as Guerrero had picked that up earlier before she went to sit down and think over her foot slip out of bounds. Betty Aim Fire coming up on her first scoring pass, runs into the 3-wall, almost 4-wall at the front. Jump through, and in spite of the shove, the player shove of judo chop, is able to make it through. Picks up 4 points, 1 point missed on that, no pass, no penalty. As she rounded someone not quite perfectly. This time, however, she is through and picks up the Grand Slam, 5 points. 1 point deficit now for Emerald City as she comes into the back once again. Emerald City setting up in the back, judo chop sent to the box. 3 blockers for Jet City. As Guerrero returns to play. Another Grand Slam for Emerald City. That is the official lead change now, 110 to 106. Guerrero also, I believe, on the scoring pass now as she had cleared the back before she was sent to the penalty box. Time runs out on the jam. And we had 4 points.
I believe that 4 more points for Emerald City.
Yes. And no points, I guess, on that last for Jet, getting us to wait. Scores are
okay, no, the score, those 4 points were for Jet City. That's actually what I thought. They were just put onto the scoreboard on the wrong team. So the score is now tied at the beginning of the first half after 1 jam. So now we have Grace Golden, number 00, jamming for Emerald City against Ivana Herzer, returning to the track. Number 5 for Jet City. Jet City in the blue, Emerald City in the white. Ivana Herzer gets around Ogden and Killen Zazillion to claim lead jammer. Grace Golden still at the back of the pack. Teeny Bopper on the inside lane, Dolldozer in the center, and Morticia Militia on the outside. They are broken up by Killen Sicilian, but reform almost immediately, and Grace Golden still struggling to get past them. The arm not up, but Grace Golden finding an opening, but Ivana Herzer into the back on her first scoring pass. Not quite getting that lap point on the jammer, or I don't think so, but one-on-one with Ogden, but dodges behind her, gets through the, completes that scoring pass, calls off the jam. 4 points Jet City, and that puts Jet City back in the lead.
And it also puts Jet City with all 4 blockers on the track, and almost a full pack on both sides, as our remaining rocker roller standing, about to come back in. Now we got Pippi Longstalker against Medusa Harm for the Emerald City.
4-on-3 pack advantage for Jet City, but Rockarola standing in the penalty box, so less than 10 seconds on that. Nasty Nikki Nightstick taking down Coop right off the first whistle, and that opens a nice wide opening for Pippi Longstalker. She gets through easily and claims lead jammer. Medusa Harm not quite so lucky. Traps around it on all three sides, but finds an outside lane, just pours on the speed, gets through. But here comes Pippi Longstalker on a scoring pass. 3-wall in the front, that's Psychotic Rage, Rockarola, and Aerial Strike, but a quick mover on the outside gets around Rockarola. She calls off the jam, gets 3 out of a potential 4 points.
Emerald City focusing all their attention on the inside of the track on that. Pippi saw that, took the quick jump to the outside, started calling off the jam, I think before she even had her hips up to the last skater, managed to sneak him in front. Pick up the 3, better than nothing. Now we've got Eva Derci against Betty Aim Fire. Please begin chanting again. Thank you.
Jet City still with a 4-on-3 pack advantage, and even there she gets past Catino.
It's just Catino.
I don't know who that other person was, but she gets out on a cutting. She's going to the penalty box. That's going to give Emerald City a power jam, and Betty Ainfire claiming lead jammer as well. Now Jet City still at full strength in the pack. It's 4-on-3. Coop still in the penalty box for Emerald City. But Betty Ainfire on the power jam runs into Teeny Bopper, Slick, and Doll Dozer. And now Deadline joining the fight at the front of the pack. Jalapeno trying to help out her jammer, but Jet City holding strong in the front. Now Emerald City giving up on the sausage and moves in and trying to break up the Jet City defense. Slick in rear guard position, matching Betty Ainfire move for move. Deadline guarding the inside lane and working together. They get Betty Ainfire out of bounds, but she comes back in, gets around those two. Doll Dozer one-on-one, and now Deadline coming in, but whips with a shoulder check. Betty Ainfire able to get around Doll Dozer and gets 5 points, a grand slam for Emerald City. First points on the board in this jam. That narrows it to 2 points on the scoreboard. Betty Ainfire now on a second scoring pass. And still potential 5 points on this one. Doll Dozer in the back with Deadline and Slick. Deadline and Teeny Bopper. I got that wrong again. Slick and Teeny Bopper. Teeny Bopper now going to the penalty box. Betty Ainfire getting around Slick and Doll Dozer claiming another 5. That's 10 points so far. And that's another lead change. Ivaderci though back in the mix, the jammer for Jet City. Now facing off against the Emerald City blockers. That's killing Sicilian, Jalapeno, and Coop. Oh, and Catino's back in there too. Emerald City actually all at full strength for the time being, but that was a chaotic jam. But Emerald City coming up with 15 points, and that puts them back in the lead. So another lead change, Scott.
It is indeed another lead change.
So as soon as one of the seats opens up, she is going to be directed to the penalty box for the penalty she got in the previous jam.
Yeah, she picked that up right at the end of the jam, I believe.
The GRR taken down immediately by aerial strike. Grace Golden at the front of the pack going against Doll Dozer and Nasty Nikki Nightstick, holding her and forcing her back actually. But now forcing ahead, dodges to the inside of Doll Dozer and gets out. She is lead jammer. GRR gets Rockarola just cremated by Nasty Nikki Nightstick. Both skaters going down, but that opens up for GRR to get out of the pack. But here comes Grace Golden on a scoring pass. Deadline and Nasty Nikki Nightstick in the front. Aerial strike for Emerald City and Rockarola for Emerald City in the back. Right now a 2-on-2 pack right now. And the jam gets called off. Grace Golden 4 points and Emerald City extending the lead to 12 points.
Grace Golden snuck her hips in front, called it off. She knew the GRR was right behind her. Didn't want to give up any points there. Now we have yet another surprisingly light pack tonight. Jet City has one in the box, and we've got two in the box for Emerald City.
It's a 3-on-2 pack advantage for Emerald City in the white. Ivana Hercha, the jammer for Jet City, looking for an inside lane, but Jalapeno cuts her off. And here comes Wonder Dread out of the pack. She is lead jammer, but followed immediately by the Jet City jammer, Ivana Hercha. Both jammers now making their way around into scoring position. A 3-on-2 pack right now as Coop rejoins the fun. Wonder Dread gets into the back, calls off the jam. But it looks like Ivana Hercha actually getting more points. A 3-0 jam. Wonder Dread did not get any points, but Ivana Hercha passed one Emerald City skater on the track and gets those 2 ghost points for Jalapeno and Psychotic Rage. So a 3-0 jam for Jet City.
I always hated the ghost runner in elementary school when we played baseball. The ghost point similar.
Pippi Longstalker for Jet City against Grace Golden for Emerald City. A 3-on-2 pack advantage still for Jet City. And now Pippi Longstalker going against Grace Golden, knocks her out of bounds. And Pippi Longstalker looking for the cutting the track penalty, but it does not come. She did so. Grace Golden apparently did not cut the track, and that is a good thing for Emerald City. But Pippi Longstocker recovers her composure, gets through the pack, claims lead jammer status, and there goes Grace Golden getting out of the pack. So that was a misstep by Pippi Longstocker. She actually giving up the advantage because she mistakenly thought that Grace Golden was held out of bounds by her. But she manages to recover, gets out of the pack, gets 4 points on that scoring pass, and calls off the jam.
And she does, and then that, I think towards the end of that jam, Jet City went back to full strength. So they now have the one skater advantage over Emerald City, although the Emerald blocker in the box is standing. So she'll be coming out soon. Wonder Dread jamming up against Eva Derchi for Jet City.
Jet City now a 4-on-3 pack advantage. Jet City at full strength. Wonder Dread knocked out by Marilyn Gun-Ho. Now way at the back of the back. Here comes Eva Derchi, almost gets out, but Rock-a-Rolla with a strong shoulder move, gets her out of bounds. Eva Derchi has to recycle, now comes back in, gets a shirt whip off of Tabula Rasa, and finds a wide open outside lane, gets out first for lead jammer. Wonder Dread still in the back, but now gets around that 3 wall, and she is out as well. Both jammers making their way into scoring position, and the penalty box is clear. We are at full strength on both teams. Here comes Eva Derchi in the confusion. I think both teams just trying to figure out what to do because all of a sudden everyone's on the track. There's no place for me to stand.
And I think given the full pack and the tie, that's a reason to have a drink right there all by itself. 128, both teams side with 18 and a half minutes to go. Gurrar steps back up to the jammer line along with Grace Golden for the Emerald City Skatesaphrenics.
So it is completely tied now in empty penalty box. So this is exactly like the first jam, except there's only 18 minutes left in the game. Gurrar now forced to the outside by Copernicus, but manages to find an opening on the outside, gets around Medusa Harm, and she is lead jammer for Jet City. Grace Golden finds it, just drives straight up the center, stopped only by Dolldozer. Dolldozer now holding the line on point for Jet City, and here comes Morticia Militia making it a 2-wall. Grace Golden now has 2 Jet City defenders, and she gets knocked out of bounds, has to recycle. And here comes Gurrar on a scoring pass. Moved in, I think she thought for a second she was going to the penalty box, but that was actually number 0, not number 00.
Too many zeros on the track at one time.
One of the disadvantages of having that number. When they say 0, do they mean 0 or 00?
I have trouble figuring that out anyway. Nasty Nikki Nightstick putting on the jammer star up against Betty Aimfire. This is the first time we've seen Nasty Nikki jamming tonight, I believe. Or today. It's not night, is it? It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Nasty Nikki Nightstick doesn't get to the jammer line often, but when she does, she makes a splash. And like with Jalapeno knocking her straight down, and now getting around killing Sicilian, she is lead jammer for Jet City. Betty Aimfire moving up the inside lane, now one-on-one with Judo Chop number 01 for Jet City. Judo Chop holding the line. That is Trixie Strashinum and Marilyn Gun-Ho bridging, but they run out of room. Betty Aimfire gets a free pass. It's a 3-on-2 pack right now. Emerald City continuing to have that extra disadvantage. One more blocker than Jet City in the penalty box, and Nasty Nikki Nightstick not quite completing her pass, but calling it off for 3 points. Emerald City now coming up empty. Mistress Mouth, what do we got over on the other track?
Over on the other track, track 2, 14 and a half minutes left. Portstino is still in the lead, 291. Foco just breaking the century mark with a 101. They're making their comeback.
Yeah, both packs with a 2-skater disadvantage, both with 2 in the box.
Pippi Longstocker with a quick mover on the outside, gets around Rock-a-Rolla, and she is lead jammer. Grace Golden going against 2 blockers, Dolldozer and Morticia Militia, but they get out of play, and Dolldozer heads to the penalty box on a major penalty. And Pippi Longstocker quickly gets through the pack, gets 4 points, calls off the jam, 4-0 Jet City.
And that gives Jet City the lead, 141 to 128, with just over 15 minutes to go.
That's pretty good.
All right, you're done. Now let's hear it for Jet City.
So the referee is just making sure that all the dots, all the I's are crossed and the T's are dotted. And here we go, Medusa Harm sneaks around the, oh no, she doesn't quite sneak well enough. She gets that is a major track cut. Ivana Hercha taking advantage of the confusion, gets through a very sparse pack, claims lead jammer. Now a little help from Marilyn Gunno, and gets right around and just sneaks up on the Emerald City defense. Aerial strike didn't even see her until she was already past. But now Medusa Harm back into action. And I don't think that was a full minute, so I think that they may have discounted that cutting the track. I think that may have been, it was turning into no pass, no penalty. So the other skater did take herself out of play. She's going against Betty Aim Fire, but we have a 3-on-3 pack, one blocker from each team in the penalty box. And both, this is definitely a scrum start. Both jammers leaning into the pack, and now straight up the center, neck and neck, now crossing each other. Betty Aim Fire screened off by Teeny Bopper, and Tabula Rasa gets around Psychotic Rage to claim lead jammer for Jet City. Betty Aim Fire finds an opening now, but she's got about a half a lap to catch up to Tabula Rasa. Tabula Rasa hits the back, gets a big whip from Dolldozer and goes flying past Aerial Strike, and Psychotic Rage calls off the jam. 4 points, Jet City.
And hey, look, we're back to a non-even or an even yet understrength pack, with both teams one in the box. As Pippi Longstocker heads up against Jalapeno. Jet City leading, extending their lead by 4 on that last jam to 153 to 128.
And I think Rockarola setting up residence in the penalty box. She's been there for, I think, the last 3 jams in a row, if I'm not mistaken. But Teeny Bopper in there with her, so it's still a 3-on-3 pack. Jalapeno struggling to make any progress against that 3-wall in the back from Jet City. But Pippi Longstocker quickly getting past the Emerald City blockers. She is lead jammer. Jalapeno stopped by Nasty Nikki Nightstick and Marilyn Gunno, and forced out of bounds by Nasty Nikki Nightstick, as Pippi Longstocker finds a wide open inside lane and gets an easy grand slam for Jet City. Jalapeno finally getting past Marilyn Gunho, and Trixie's trashing him at the front. But that was her initial pass. A full lap behind Pippi Longstocker, and Pippi Longstocker on a second scoring pass. Gets around, gets a little help from Trixie's trashing him, but held up briefly by Ogden, but calls off the jam. 3 more points for Jet City. Well, yes, a 5 and a 3, and still nothing for Emerald City.
Emerald City definitely in a deficit. I believe that Rockarola got an extra minute on her last penalty. I think I saw them indicating the 2.
That's right. The score was tied at 128 when there were 18 minutes to go. So in the last 6 minutes, Jet City has scored all the points. Grace Golden now and going one. It's 0-0 versus 0-0. Gurr, the other jammer for Jet City. Both jammers get knocked out of bounds but recovered. Now Gurr moving up the outside, gets stopped right at the front by Rockarola and Medusa Harm. But Dolldozer taken out Rockarola, and Gurr taking on Medusa Harm and winning that duel. Gets out first for lead jammer. Grace Golden all the way at the back of the pack, held up by Teeny Bopper and Deadline. And there goes Morticia Militia screaming across, taking the Emerald City jammer out. Emerald City jammer now surrounded by all 4 Jet City blockers. Grace Golden still trying to get out of her initial pass. Gurr, the Jet City jammer, has completed her first scoring pass. Only 4 out of potential 5 points on that pass, though. There goes Teeny Bopper going to the penalty box. That's going to make it a 3-on-3 pack again. Aerial strike in there for Emerald City in the penalty box. Grace Golden is still not caught up to the pack to get into scoring position. Gurr has completed a second scoring pass, this time only 4 points. That was 4 out of 4. 8 points so far for Jet City. The pack just careening out of around the track. Grace Golden just struggling just to catch up to this very fast pack. A 3-on-2 pack. Jet City in the advantage. And the jam, was that timeout or sorry, was that called off?
No, called it off. It was a very strategic pack play as the pack sped it up. They knew they had the lead. Gurr took it easy for a couple of laps, waited until the Emerald City Jammer Grace Golden was catching up, and then called it off. Jalapeno jamming now for Emerald City against Ivana Hercha for Jet City. Emerald City with a 1-skater pack disadvantage, but one of their girls in the penalty box is standing and now back on.
Ivana Hercha stopped in her tracks, but now dodges around the outside of Betty Aimfire. Steps over Ogden and claims lead jammer. They've got Jalapeno knocked down by Marilyn Gunho, but Marilyn Gunho going to the penalty box, and now Emerald City with the first pack advantage they've had in a while. But Jalapeno with a beautiful dodge right around. That was downright graceful, getting around nasty Nikki Nightstick and completing her initial pass. But Ivana Hercha getting through the pack, claiming all 4 points, calling off the jam, and once again, Emerald City for the last 9 minutes has not yet scored a point.
Mistress, what's next?
What's next? Coming up, 1 second. Coming up on this track at the end of this bout, we have Backyard Derby Games versus Arc Valley High Rollers, so don't go away.
Wonder Dread facing off against Pippi Longstalker. Pippi Longstalker for Jet City in the blue. Wonder Dread for Emerald City in the white. Pippi Longstalker going one-on-one with Psychotic Rage and gets the better of her. Gets out first for lead jammer. Wonder Dread finds a narrow opening on the inside lane. A little help from number 8, Catino, and she gets out as well. Both jammers now racing around. Wonder Dread looking like she is determined. Absolute determination on her face. But there goes Pippi Longstalker into the pack first on a scoring pass and calls off the jam. I don't think she completed that scoring. No, she did. She gets all 4 points for Jet City.
That was a case where I think she was trying to call it off a little early, but her hands were fairly subtle and the ref didn't see it, and that actually let her pick up that extra point. So occasionally the non-giant flapping falling off of the jam works for you. Tabula Rasa back on the jammer line for Jet City against Jalapeno for the Emerald City Skatesaphrenics.
Emerald City at full strength for the first time in I don't know how many jams. Jet City starting out with only 3 blockers on the track, but Jalapeno held up by all 3 of them. Tabula Rasa stuck behind Killing Sicilian and Betty Aimfire, but forces her way up the inside lane and claims lead jammer. Jalapeno now facing all 4 Jet City blockers as Marilyn Gunho rejoins the pack. Marilyn Gunho with a shoulder check, takes Jalapeno all the way outside and draws the cutting penalty. It's a power jam for Jet City. Tabula Rasa on her first scoring pass, still held up behind Betty Aimfire. Aerial striking Killing Sicilian, and Ogden filling up that 4 wall. But now Tabula Rasa getting a major back block. She's going to the penalty box, so we're going to have a jammer swap out. As soon as she sits down, Jalapeno, if she sits down, Jalapeno will be released from the penalty box, and Tabula Rasa will serve the same amount of time. Looks like, I think unofficially, that was about 20 or 30 seconds that Jalapeno was already in there. So a shortened power jam for Jalapeno. Jalapeno still on her initial pass, by the way. Now facing against all 4 blockers, but Trixie Strasham stuck in the goat pen of Emerald City, fights her way out of there, and now once again Jalapeno surrounded completely by Jet City as Tabula Rasa gets out of the penalty box and completes that scoring pass. 4 more points for Jet City. And now Jalapeno in full defensive mode. So we've got all 5 Emerald City skaters blocking Tabula Rasa, but Tabula Rasa, she don't care. She goes right up the center, but Betty Aimfire gets position on her and slowing her down, helped out by Ogden. Now Ogden dropping back to bridge. But we've still got Killing Sicilian, and now Betty Aimfire dropping back to bridge as well. Killing Sicilian one-on-one. Time runs out in that jam, but Tabula Rasa, another 5 on the board. 9 points total of this jam, and Emerald City still coming up empty with only 5 minutes left in the game.
Tabula Rasa could not believe she got called on that penalty. The head shaking made it clear. She did not necessarily agree with that call, but you still have to sit down one way or the other, and power jam's not exactly what you need. Mistress, what do you got?
We've got number 44 and number 78, both with 6 penalties.
Better keep an eye on the penalties.
That is Jalapeno who's jamming that is Grace Gold who was jamming. Grace Golden now jamming for Emerald City, number 00 against number 5, Ivana Hercha. Ivana Hercha taken out by Medusa Harm, but Medusa Harm clobbered by Doll Dozer. Ivana Hercha now moving up, finds an outside lane to get around aerial strike, but Grace Golden already out and claimed lead jammer. Grace Golden hits the pack, making the calling off gesture as she enters the pack and claims 1 point, the first point that Emerald City has scored in 14 minutes. They're finally broken the streak.
And with that, it's all going to turn around. I have to say, if there was an award for most apropos skater name in this bout, I would have to give it to Doll Dozer, because she has been moving people around like it's no effort at all. Betty Aimfire jamming against Pippi Longstocker in jam 19. I'm sorry, jam 20. I miscounted. Just over 3.5 minutes to go in this bout. Pippi Longstocker one-on-one with Killing Sicilian, and Killing Sicilian not quite managing to get her out, but now Emerald City forming up a 4-wall in the front surrounding Pippi Longstocker. Ogden sweeps across, but Pippi Longstocker draws us behind her, but still has the rest of the 3 Emerald City blockers to get around. Gets around Coop, but Coop recovers, comes back and gives that shoulder check, not budging an inch. Pippi Longstocker working harder than she's had to in several jams, but they run out of room, get out of the engagement zone. A free pass for Pippi Longstocker, but she looks like she may be a little bit winded, actually. She had to work hard to get out of that initial pass, but here comes Betty Aimfire, going now in the front of the backs, also on her initial pass. Judo chop one-on-one with her on point, but now in the front of the backs, also on her initial pass. Judo chop one-on-one with her on point, but a screen across from Trixie's Trashin'em takes out Betty Aimfire, but Trixie's Trashin'em going to the penalty box. Betty Aimfire finally completing her initial pass, but Pippi Longstocker, excuse me. And we believe that Coop is the injured player at the moment. Morticia Militia jamming for Jet City against Grace Golden. I'm sorry, Mistress, what did you have to say?
Who are you to speculate? We don't know when these girls are going to call it off.
Morticia Militia blasts her way straight up the center of the pack and gets around aerial strike to claim lead jammer. Grace Golden stuck behind a 2-wall of Pippi Longstocker and Doll Dozer at the front of the pack. The pack getting spread out, but not quite far enough. It reforms just in time, so Grace Golden not getting that free pass I'm sure she was hoping for. Now Jalapeno sweeping across, trying to break up that 2-wall. She gets Doll Dozer out of the way, but Pippi Longstocker, Pippi Longstocker unable to keep the door shut. But here comes Morticia Militia on a scoring pass. Taken out, forced wide by Jalapeno, calls off the jam from out of bounds.
And she took out a ref in the movement.
And a team timeout called by Emerald City.
Edmonton.
There are less than 2 minutes left in the game. Jet City with a healthy lead, so Emerald City looking for a very, very strong jam right now. But it's a 2-on-2 pack. Betty Aimfire gets up to the front. Nasty Nikki Nightstick stops her in her tracks. Ivana Hercha gets through and just edges out Betty Aim Fire for lead jammer. And that means that Jet City in control of the clock. Ivana Hercha now in defensive stance, just slowing down Betty Aim Fire. Now the pack moving to catch up, but Emerald City slowing it down, allowing their jammer to increase the distance. Obviously, Ivana Hercha attempting to feed the baby, but Betty Aim Fire having none of it. However, a tie in this jam would, as always, go to the team with the most points. So Jet City definitely with the advantage. Betty Aim Fire needing to do something big in this jam, and the clock ticking away. Ivana Hercha just maintaining defensive posture against Betty Aim Fire. Now they both go for it, but Betty Aim Fire gets in front. Ivana Hercha stumbled but recovers quickly. Now there goes Betty Aim Fire, knocked out of bounds by Nasty Nikki Nightstick, comes back in, sneaks up the inside. Judo chop sees her, but Marilyn Gunho is there before her and stops her in her tracks. And the jam called off by Ivana Hercha, and another timeout called by Emerald City with about 10 seconds on the clock. A 62-point lead by Jet City. Vivi Longstalker on the line for Jet City against Grace Golden for Emerald City. Grace Golden stumbles over a fallen Vivi Longstalker. Both of them getting back up very quickly, but Grace Golden gets past Marilyn Gunho on point and claims lead jammer. Emerald City in control of the clock. Vivi Longstalker gets out of the pack as well, gets a little whip from Marilyn Gunho at the front of the pack, but both jammers now moving into scoring position. Vivi Longstalker in the rear. Grace Golden gets into the pack, but immediately shuffled off the track by Nasty Nikki Nightstick. Pippi Longstalker getting around Catino, gets a big whip from Marilyn Gunho, and she is out of there. 4 points for Jet City. Grace Golden still on her first scoring pass, now moving into the three wall of Jet City. That's Morticia Melissa, Marilyn Gunho, and Dolldozer. She can't get past them.
And Nasty Nikki Nightstick took a bit of a hit. I think she landed hard. I think that was... I didn't see the actual contact. She did make contact, fell down a little hard. High block. Apparently it was a high block.
All right, that is the final score. 196 for Jet City, 131 for Emerald City. Jet City has emerged victorious. Congratulations.
And after you give the teams a high five, you stick around for the Dr. Movie Days here at Downtown Rollers. Coming up next, right here on this track, we'll next show, watch some junior derby. Your call.